So today we're going to pre-trip our skid steer. Typically you're going to just pick a corner, start, work all the way around the vehicle. Checking all your major points. We're looking for damage, anything that needs to be repaired or replaced. We want to make sure that it's in good operating condition before we take it out on the job. So I'm going to start right here on the front left corner and just work my way back and around. So we'll start with the track right here. We're going to look over the entire track, make sure nothing's torn up. It's not coming off. It's still in the groove where it needs to be, because you don't want to start driving down the road and flip a track off. It's not fun. So you're just going to look over the entire track, make sure you don't have any big chunks, anything missing. You're going to inspect your teeth down in here, make sure it's in the groove. You'll see, if you get down here, you'll see there's a groove for these teeth that drive the track. You want to make sure that's in place and operational. And just like a 10-wheeler or pickup, even though this has tracks, you still have lug nuts, essentially, that hold this sprocket on. So you want to look at those, make sure they're all on, make sure they're all tight, nothing's coming off. You got multiple wheels down on the bottom that guide it. You want to look over each one of those as well, make sure they're all in good operating condition. Nothing cracked, nothing broke, nothing bent. As long as everything looks good, we can move on and keep going. You go up the side a little bit, we've got our hydraulic rams that operate our arm. You want to inspect those to make sure that your rams are not leaking, nothing's chipped. You can look at the seal. Typically leaks are going to form around your seal when the seal starts to blow out from being worn. Most of the time that's where they will form. You'll also get leaks on your little fittings. You want to look at all your lines that you can see, make sure you have nothing leaking. You also want to look at the lines to make sure they're not rubbing against anything, so they're chafing. If they are, they need to be repaired or replaced. Same with your electrical. You can see back inside a little bit. We've got wire harnesses here. We want to look at those, make sure nothing's rubbing. No wires are exposed. You don't want to create any electrical problems from something running and rubbing against something that it shouldn't. When you're doing your outside walk around, you also want to check all of your windows, make sure nothing's cracked, broke. You start going down the job site and you got a cracked window, you hit the bump just right and that whole thing shatters. It's not fun. You got them on all four sides. You also got a roof hatch with glass on it. Can't see it from here, but you'll be able to see it from inside the cab. Just want to make sure nothing's cracked, chipped, broken, loose. You know, maybe give them a little poke. If they fall out, you might want to get it fixed. You also want to check all your lighting. You'll need to fire it up, turn everything on, make sure all your lights are operational. Skid steer doesn't have any turn signals, but it does have a headlight, tail light, and a brake light. As long as they're all good and where they're supposed to be, we can continue on around the back. So now we're going to come around the back and inspect our engine compartment. So just like the 10-wheeler, we're going to check all of our fluids, our belts, hoses, and electrical. Coolant reservoirs over on the side. Make sure we have the proper level. This machine is cold right now, and as you can see, full cold line, it's right there on it, so we're good. Your oil dipstick on this one is over on the side. I'm going to check our oil just like we would on any vehicle. Pull it out, wipe it off. Re-dip, make sure we're good. This one's right on the full mark, so we're good. You're gonna move on to the electrical and the hoses. You're just gonna make your way around the engine, trying to cover all sides. Just make sure nothing's rubbing. All your electrical's tied up like it should be. None of your hoses or wiring is chafed. Everything on this one looks good. The belts on this one, this particular model, are up front. We can't really get to them to look. You also want to inspect your condensers and coolers. Make sure they're not damaged. Wet spots indicate a leak or a broken fin. If that's the case, we need to write it up and get it repaired before we go use it. We don't want to create any more damage than we already have. Same thing for your radiator up top. Most of these, the radiators are mounted on top with a draw-through fan to cool the engine. Clean air comes from the top, sucks it through, cools it off. You just want to look at that. Make sure nothing's dented, broken, leaking, cracked. You've got hoses that are kind of hard to see, but you kind of got to stick your nose in there. Just make sure you get some eyeballs on them, make sure that nothing's rubbing, nothing's chafing, nothing's leaking. So on the back, you've got a tail light, brake light, and a work light. You want to make sure all those are operational. No cracked lenses. That'll let moisture in, bulbs burn out. You got to fix it. Write it up. Let's get it repaired if they're cracked. You also got a back window. May not seem important, but there is a mirror mounted up on the top there, and that's the only way you can see behind you in these. There's no side mounted mirrors, so you want to make sure that back window, no cracks, and it's clean. Visibility is important. Okay. So we're just going to continue on around. This side's just like the other side. Just because that side's good doesn't mean we don't look at this side too, even though it's the same. We're going to check out all the same things just like we did on the previous side. We're going to look at our track, make sure it's not damaged, make sure it's in the groove, mounted properly. We're going to check all of our bolts, make sure everything's tight and secure, make sure none of our wheels are bent or broken. Continue on up just like we did the other side. We're going to check all of our hoses, all of our rams, make sure we don't have any leaks. We're going to check our pivot points. I believe I failed to mention on the other side that look at your pivot points. Make sure everything's greased properly. Not being greased properly leads to early failure. So make sure you keep up on your greasings. It makes things go a lot better. Less breakdowns, more work. Then you continue on around the front and go through it. Up here on the skid steer, you've got quite a few moving points that you got to check out. Up here on your bucket, you've got a ram on each side that operates your bucket. You want to inspect both of those. They both have hoses that run to and from them. You want to make sure that both of those hoses are in good shape, nothing's leaking. You got quite a few pivot points. A pivot point with both rams on both ends. Your arm, you've got a pivot point up here, and down on the bottom. Want to inspect both of those, make sure they're properly greased, operational, nothing's loose. Maybe give it a shake. If something's coming apart, you can typically feel it. You want to check the locks on whatever accessory you have on your skid steer. We have a bucket on today. It's a really simple locking mechanism. Just make sure it's all the way down. The unlock position is typically all the way up on most of these newer models. And that'll complete the outside portion of a walk around.